It began with a blurry, nearly indistinct photo. A young woman in a parking lot, hand resting gently on her midsection, her gaze turned away. In any other world, it might have gone unnoticed. But in this world, where reality TV meets relentless curiosity, it was more than enough. Within hours, the image had spread across the internet, spawning hashtags, reaction videos, and speculative posts. Words like hashtag Duggar daughter, hashtag Jonah steps out, and hashtag breaking tradition trended on social platforms. For fans and critics alike, the moment felt seismic. Springdale, Arkansas, home to the famously large family once followed by millions, was suddenly under digital siege once again. At the center of the online whirlwind, Johannah Duggar. The once quiet sibling now shrouded in mystery, reappearing not on TV, but in a candid snapshot that sparked endless questions. Inside the Duggar household, reactions were mixed. Jim Bob Duggar reportedly received a wave of calls, some congratulatory, others confused. But it was Michelle Duggar who felt the news in her bones, her heart heavy with the weight of a daughter's silence. For months, Johannah had grown distant. Fewer calls, less participation in family events, a subtle yet unmistakable pulling away. The family group chat, usually filled with updates, encouragements, and Bible verses, now buzzed with concern. Johannah, the eldest daughter, quietly read through old messages, piecing together changes she hadn't fully noticed. Jinger, watching from California, sent a message simply reading, "Whatever happens, I'm with her." But it was Jill, ever the voice of understanding, who posted first. Not a declaration, just a line of quiet support. Sometimes healing looks like distance. Still proud of you, Joe. The truth unfolds. Over the next few weeks, details emerged, not from tabloids, but from those close to Johannah who chose empathy over exposure. She wasn't in hiding. She wasn't lost. She was simply living. 6 months earlier, Johannah had enrolled in a Christian community college under her full name, embracing a quieter life. She moved into a small studio apartment above a bookstore and took a job at a cafe. In this new life, she wasn't anyone's brand. She wasn't being filmed. She wasn't performing. She was reading, studying, thinking, asking questions she'd been told not to ask. She reconnected with an old friend, Caleb Martin, someone who had long walked the line between the Duggar world and the world beyond. Their bond deepened through shared hikes, late-night theology debates, and an honest desire to find their own way. What they found was not rebellion, but a new rhythm, something deliberate, respectful, unrushed. And eventually, they found out they were expecting a child. Rewriting the narrative. Johannah didn't make an announcement. She didn't post a gender reveal or pose for curated maternity shoots. She created a small private social media account for close friends and shared quiet joys. Baby shoes left on a windowsill, nursery paint swatches, poetry scribbled on napkins. She didn't ask for attention, but attention found her. As speculation grew, so did debate. Online forums buzzed with opinions. Some called it a departure from values. Others saw a young woman building her life on her own terms. Inside the family, tension rose and softened in waves. Jim Bob made calls. Michelle prayed quietly at dawn. And slowly, Johannah's sisters began to rally, not as defenders, but as mirrors. Each one had stepped away in their own way. Johannah was simply choosing how. When Johannah finally visited the family home that fall, it wasn't dramatic. She didn't demand anything. She brought a hand-me-down bassinet, a gentle spirit, and the steady resolve of someone who'd thought hard about who she wanted to become. Standing in the familiar living room, she explained her choices, not for permission, but for peace. "I'm not asking you to agree," she said, "just to see me." as I am now. Her daughter would be named Grace Liberty Duggar. I want her to know both those words, she said. One teaches compassion. The other teaches courage. What came next? Not everyone approved. Old family friends stepped back. Certain community circles closed,
Johannah, who had
quietly borne the emotional weight of the family for years, found new clarity in Jonah's journey. She started therapy. Jinger sent care packages from the West Coast. Jill, ever the anchor, continued to advocate for change. As for Caleb and Johannah, their life was simple, but whole. They eventually married, not under pressure, but by choice. They raised Grace in a home filled with laughter, books, soft music, and boundaries gently explained. Johannah never gave interviews. She declined podcast requests and book deals. Instead, she started journaling again. For her daughter, for herself, for anyone who might someday need the words, you're allowed to grow in directions they never planned for you. Final thoughts. In a world where every public figure is expected to explain, defend, and dramatize, Johannah did none of it. She simply lived her truth, quietly, purposefully. And in doing so, she reminded the world that breaking the script isn't a betrayal, it's a beginning. So yes, the photo went viral. The hashtags trended. But long after the noise faded, Johannah remained steady. Rooted, ready. And Grace Liberty Duggar. She was born into love, not a legacy, not a brand. Duggar is PREGN and fans can't believe the news. The internet practically imploded at 2:47 p.m. on a chilly Tuesday afternoon in October. All it took was one photo. A grainy, slightly tilted snapshot uploaded to a private Instagram story, gone in 24 hours, but not before screenshots exploded across TikTok X, formerly Twitter, Reddit, and fan pages with the force of a Category 5 Kasif hurricane. In the photo, Johannah Duggar, standing in front of a fall-themed backdrop, pumpkins, hay bales, flannel-clad families holding cider. Her sweater hung loose around her midsection, but her hand rested gently, protectively, unmistakably across her stomach. And that's all it took. By dinner time, the phrase Johannah Duggar pregnant was trending worldwide. Fan forums were lit. Reaction videos were uploaded by the minute. Some fans gasped, others defended, and still more asked the question that hung in the air like a leaf about to fall. Is this for real? Because Johannah, sweet, quiet, spunky Johannah, was supposed to still be a kid in everyone's mind. Never mind that she was born in 2005 and had just turned 20. In the Duggar family timeline, she was forever the bike-riding tomboy with a mischievous grin who climbed trees in denim skirts and shared jokes with Jackson. Now she was allegedly expecting a child. Impossible, unbelievable. Or was it? Chapter 1. The Whisper Before the Storm. For those who had been watching closely, the signs had been there, hidden, subtle, quiet, like snow melting before the first flake falls. Johannah had begun drifting from the family's tightly managed public presence a little over a year ago. No more birthday countdown posts. No more family update photos with everyone standing in height order, like they were auditioning for a modest fashion catalog. She had started college, actual college, a Christian liberal arts school 2 hours from home, with dorm rooms and debate clubs and professors who encouraged asking questions instead of memorizing answers. Her Instagram, once flooded with reposts of Bible verses and family brunches, turned poetic. She shared pictures of rainy windows, her chipped mug filled with black coffee, her dorm's messy desk with theology books, and a copy of Jane Eyre. She'd even cut her hair, just a few inches at first, but then into a full shoulder-length style that had fans whispering. She's not just growing up. She's changing. Chapter 2. The confession. The official confirmation didn't come from a family rep. There was no exclusive magazine deal, no red-lettered announcement on a blog. It came instead from Johannah herself in the form of a letter. Posted to a private blog that only a handful of her close friends knew about, the entry was titled, Becoming. In it, she wrote not about scandal or shame, but about growth, identity, faith that evolved, not fractured. For a long time, I thought my life had to fit inside a blueprint I didn't draw. But when I started asking what I believed, I found more questions than answers. And then I found peace. Yes, I'm pregnant. No, I'm not ashamed. I'm not lost. I'm not rebellious. I'm just me. A young woman who loves her family, but also needed space to find her own story. She didn't name the father. She didn't explain the timeline. She didn't owe anyone that. Instead, she talked about long walks through autumn leaves, about crying on the floor of her dorm room, about praying not for clarity, but for the courage to be honest, with herself and with the world. And at the end of her letter, she wrote, My baby will grow up loved. That's all that matters to me now. Chapter 3. Fallout and Forgiveness. The family didn't react publicly right away. The silence said everything. Junbob, always composed in front of cameras, reportedly made several phone calls that week, some to pastors, some to lawyers, some to TLC, whose contract with the family had been dormant but not dissolved. Michelle was said to be heartbroken, praying late into the night, torn between motherly instinct and the doctrine she'd wrapped herself in for decades. Jessa stayed quiet. Johannah asked for privacy. Jinger, watching from California, sent a message to Johannah that simply said, You are not alone. Ever. But it was Jill, estranged and outspoken, who posted a statement that went viral. When I stepped away, I didn't know if I'd survive the backlash. Johannah, if you're reading this, you are brave. And love isn't supposed to come with conditions. Chapter 4. Becoming a Mother. Johannah didn't move home. She didn't retreat. Instead, she stayed in her small off-campus apartment. She worked part-time at the campus library, read everything she could on parenting, and took long walks in the early morning when the world was still quiet. Watercolor scenes of open windows and glowing lamps. She journaled. She talked to her growing belly like a friend. She named the baby before she ever saw her face. Evelyn Hope Duggar. Evelyn for the grandmother who taught me grace, she wrote. Hope because it's the one thing I refuse to lose. When she posted a photo of the nursery, a borrowed crib, soft beige blankets, twinkle lights strung around the window, the comments flooded in. You're so strong. This is the realest I've ever seen a Duggar girl. She's breaking the cycle. Chapter 5. The Visit. They met in the park. Not the whole family, just Michelle. She showed up in a long coat, clasping her hands in front of her like she used to in interviews. She looked smaller somehow, softer. Johannah stood tall, her belly prominent, her face calm. There were no fireworks, no accusations, no tears. Just a simple, quiet conversation between a mother and daughter. Later, Johannah wrote in her journal. She told me she didn't understand it all. But she said she still loved me. I think that's the first time she said that without a verse attached to it. Chapter 6. What now? The news cycle died down eventually. Other headlines replaced hers. But for those who had followed the Duggar family for years, this one stayed, tucked into their memory like a bookmark in a worn-out novel. Johannah didn't become a celebrity. She didn't launch a podcast or start a parenting brand. Instead, she studied. She raised Evelyn. She found a church where she wasn't stared at, but welcomed. She built a life that didn't need cameras to feel real. She stopped trying to explain her story to people who only wanted a headline. Because this wasn't about shame. This wasn't about rebellion. This was about becoming. And in a world that wanted to reduce her to a scandal, Johannah Duggar chose instead to become something rare.